Alright, so this tutorial is to take you through how to use the Cockpit 3D user interface. For those of you who maybe are beginners at this and have already used the interface a little bit, some of what I'm going to share might be very, very basic, but I'm going to take you through as much as I can to help you completely understand this software and how to use it for preparing point clouds of 3D files that are, well, we call them 3D pop or 180 degrees. That pretty much means it has that cool 3D effect but without the background, right? So you don't see the back of the heads. We are going to be having a separate tutorial on how to use this software for preparing 360 degree files, but again, that's a separate tutorial recording. So we're going to start off with the functionality and just a little bit about the description of the software. You have 4 viewports when you first open up the software. You've got this port here, which is the front view. This is the top view. This is the left view. And this here is a perspective view or a bit of an angle. This is just default how it opens up. However, you are able to customize. If you prefer this view here to be the right view, you can change that. All right, so however you like. We have these functions here are for how you're going to view your working space. So if you left click your mouse on this one here, the arrows, you can move the scene. If you left click on the arrow here and turn it, you can, or move your mouse, you will rotate your scene. This here will zoom your scene. And this here is if you prefer not to be working in 4 small ports but just want to work in one big port. Click on here and you'll be able to maximize your view. In order to add or open up a new file, you would click on this here and you can then see your scene file. I've already got it open, but if you were to say click on that and open it, it will open it, and now we have 2 here. So you can see if I click on any of these layers and then if I try to move it, now I've got 2 of them there. So I'll just delete one of them by highlighting it and clicking on delete. So these functions here, as you just saw, this one here allows us to move the object. I'm just going to highlight the layer of the object. And when I click on the move tool, which also has a shortcut with the letter W, as you can see in the little pop-up description there, you could press the letter W and it will take you to this function of moving. Now you can move this object either freehand by putting your cursor here and having both arrows turn yellow. You'll notice that one arrow is green, one arrow is red. But if I put my arrow somewhere around here, both of these arrows turn yellow and now I can move it freehand anywhere. However, if I want to keep it locked, then I can just highlight one of the arrows. Now just this arrow is yellow and it'll only move it up and down. Similarly on this side here, if I do the same, it'll only move it left and right. It won't move it up and down or on an angle or anything like that. So this helps keep it locked. It helps keep it in position. We have this button here, which is for rotating. Same idea, highlight it in yellow to rotate it in whatever angle you want. Or you can backspace here if we want to get back to the original. This here is the scaling tool, so if we wanted to scale this image to best fit the template that we have, then we can scale accordingly as well. We have functions up here. I'm just going to move this up a little bit. And I'm going to click on the letter T. The letter T enables me to add inscription. So if I wanted to put, you know, demo 1, 2, 3, I can just press the tab button and it'll change the text here to what I've just typed. Don't have to worry about font size. You can just use your scale tool and scale it. You can use your move tool and move it. If you want to change the font, you can change it here. Now if you had 2 lines, press tab, it reflects the change here. We might say that the space between these 2 lines is too much. Well, we can just adjust that with the line spacing. Accordingly, we might still want to scale this down, and we're good. Now, one advantage of the multi-port view is that it does enable you to, in a very live view, see all the different windows. So here we can notice that although it looks great from the front, the font is actually still at the back in the middle of the crystal, so we might want to use our move tool and move it closer to the front of the crystal, so that way it's positioned correctly. All right. If we wanted to delete the text altogether, we could just highlight the text layer and click on the trash bin and it'll delete it. If we want to increase the brightness or contrast, again, you can do that here, which is built into the software. However, very powerful software is Adobe Photoshop, so you might want to click on this link, and as long as you have Photoshop installed, it will launch the texture file in Photoshop. And as you know, or as you can see right now, it's in color. We want to make it grayscale. We want to increase the brightness, so I like to use the curves to do that. And if you manually want to adjust brightness on anything, you can always make sure your foreground color is white. You've highlighted your brush. You've selected color dodge, and you've made it 20%. And then you can just make sure that you're selecting the right layer here. You can also brighten dark spots, or if you need it to darken, make this here a black color, and then you can click on the darken function. I'll just do an exercise here for the purpose of the demo. So I've made this black, I've made this darken, and I can now darken. So I just darkened his hand. Okay. Usually you'll use the darkening for if someone has a very white shirt, and you'll use the brightening for if someone's wearing, for example, a black shirt. But beyond that, it's really not necessary. The curves should be good enough. Now, because I have two layers here, what you always want to make sure you do before you save is you merge the layers, or you flatten the image. It does the same thing, and it makes it all into one layer. And now you click on File and Save, and it'll save this as a temporary texture file, such that when you go back to Cockpit3D and click on Refresh, it'll now update this. So the reason we do this is because we want it to look great in Crystal. There's a separate tutorial specifically talking about optimizations, so you'll probably want to tune into that to get some great tips on how to optimize photos. Alright, so that was that tool. So this here is what refreshed it and reflected the changes that we did in Photoshop. This here is a fit to the object, so it will look at the external points of the object, and it'll look at the template and it'll size it accordingly. So that's what that did. However, we manually increased this just because of the way the template was. This here just changes your view, and it makes your view a lot more I guess proportional to the window. So if for example, if my image was like this, instead of using the magnifying glass, I could click on this here and it'll just snap it back to size. This here is where you want to set all your templates. So this is something that you would want to do when you first start using the software for the different crystal sizes that you have. So if you're looking at setting up rectangular shapes, let's say for example I wanted to customize a rectangle, and I had, I don't know, an odd shape that I ordered that was maybe, I don't know, 110 by 50 by 50. And let's assume that when we ordered this from the supplier, it had a bevel or a facet along it of 2 millimeters. So we can just save this. So if we click on Save As, we can save this, and it'll call it a rectangle with the dimensions that we entered, and you just click on OK, and now it's been added to the list. So you don't always have to enter the dimensions of the crystal that you're working with. The margins are more for safety. So say I have a 2 millimeter bevel. Maybe I don't want my image to be going right up against the bevel. So in that case, I'll set my margin to be a little more than what my bevel is. So then that way, my point cloud of the image won't hit the facet or the edge of the crystal. So maybe I'd make it 3 by 3, and in the z-axis we can just keep it the same as the bevel, really, because on the Z, as we know, the bevel is only on the perimeter, so it really wouldn't affect it. So we could do that. That's if you're setting a rectangle. If you have a shape like a heart or a prestige, as you know, many suppliers provide different styles or different dimensions of hearts and prestiges. So we've made it so that you can morph the template. So if we work with our heart, for example, let's just say that our heart was 90 by 90 and our depth was 30. Sure. Click on OK, and it adjusts the heart. So you can actually use Cockpit3D software and just adjust the template for the heart or the prestige size that you have. Okay, and that's how you use templates. For point spacing, we recommend 0.07 for XY, 0.07 for Z. Most laser operators will recommend either 0.08 for XY and 0.20 for Z. On some Asian lasers, they might recommend 0.10 for XY and 0.30 for Z. However, what we recommend is to completely change your settings, and whether you have an Asian laser or a Canadian laser or a laser from anywhere else, set your XY to 0.07, set your Z to 0.07, and then go into your defaults, set your maximum layers to 8, your layer hop to 5, your diffuse to 2, and then 1 and 1. Your front should be enabled, but everything else should be off, so it should not be checkmarked. Again, the usage of these other fields will be more prevalent when you're doing 360, and for that there's a separate tutorial, but for the most part, all you're concerned about is enabling your front projection. And click on Save. Once this is set the first time, you don't have to set it again, so it will remember your settings. Now, if you're setting it at these settings and you find that the image cracks in the crystal, then reduce the power of your laser. But I highly recommend keeping these settings. We've been in this industry long enough to know what settings will get you the best, most prominent results and brightness of the image in the crystal. So just make sure that you keep these settings as is. At most, if you reduce your power and you're still incurring cracking, perhaps your laser beam is an older laser beam, in which case then and only then would I maybe recommend you go 0.08 and 0.08. But you still keep your settings here the same. Okay? So that's my recommendation on point space settings. Trim point cloud to template and create stabilizing points. So this here I'm going to uncheck mark. You'll always want to have these check marked, but I'm going to uncheck mark them right now just for the purposes of this exercise. And I think that we've pretty much gone through everything that we need to at this point. You can now click on Go to create your point cloud. Now if you're in a multi-port view, it'll always make your point cloud here in the 4th quadrant. And there it is. Okay. If you're in a maximized view, click on Go, and it'll change this view right here. Now you'll notice here that when you put your crystal in the laser, it'll burn everything in the crystal, and then it'll continue burning this space here and this space here. But this is all air. There's no crystal, so it's really not burning anything. Which is really, there's a problem with this. Number one is that it's wasting a lot of time, and number two is that when the laser comes around here and strikes the edge of the crystal, it does potentially risk the act of cracking from taking place. So that would actually crack the surface or the edge or the perimeter of your crystal. And that's really why we have this trim point cloud to template. So if you check mark that off, click on OK, and now click on Go. It'll look at the inner bevel and it'll trim it according to the inner bevels. There we go. So now it's nice, neat, and clean. Okay. Now the other thing about point clouds is that lasers tend to find the center point of the point cloud. So your point cloud starts here, ends here, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to take your point cloud and it's going to center the point cloud to a rectangular dimension that you enter for your laser machine. Because you can't enter any sort of a dimension for this template in your laser machine. You're always entering a cube or a rectangle for dimension. So in order to ensure that this point cloud burns exactly where we want it to in the heart, what we recommend is two things. Number one is measure your heart. So measure the X, measure the Y, and measure the Z, the depth, right? And then you enter those dimensions into your laser. So you'll have, and when you're measuring your Y, you would measure it from the top point here, not here. So the top point right to the absolute bottom point. The most furthest left to the most furthest right would be your X. And then your Z would be your depth. Go by the millimeter and make sure that you enter it by the millimeter here in your template. So if you have to adjust this to 89 by 87 by 27, for example, do that. So then that way it makes a minor change, but it makes it as accurate as possible. Then what you want to do is you want to make sure that your stabilizers are on. So you'll always want these two on. Again, I turn them off just for the purposes of the demo, but you'll always want these two on. And when these are on and you click on go, it will trim it again to the right size, and it will keep, so it memorizes where this point cloud is placed in the crystal, and it'll keep it exactly there when you burn it in your laser, which is an amazing, very easy to use, but an amazing function to save you a lot of time from trying to find that center point in your first piece of glass, and then finally finding the correct point, and then using a second piece of glass or a third piece of glass to burn. Saves time, saves inventory. So that's what it is. Now I want to point something else out to you. If you click here, you can actually go into your original scene view. If we click on the left-hand side, you'll notice that there's a problem. The problem right now is that our object is actually larger than the depth of our crystal, because our crystal is 30 mm, but the object itself is, if we look here, 40 mm, from, I guess, the most front point here to the most rear point here. So what you can do is you can uncheck maintain aspect ratio and make sure that your depth is less than the depth of the crystal. So I think we adjusted our crystal here to 27. So we want to make sure that our depth is less. So I'm going to, leave about a 2 millimeter margin on each side. I'll make it 23. And I'll just press the tab button, and there we go. So now if I go to the front view and click on go, we have a perfectly sized point cloud that fits the crystal perfectly, and it's ready to burn. So to save this for our laser, you want to click on Save Point Cloud here, and you have options. You've got your CAD or your DXF. So you can select this. Alternate DXF is for a specific other type of laser. So you would, for your purposes, choose CAD or DXF, and then save it, and then you can load it on your laser. So that hopefully takes you through everything, really, or at least the basics of what you need to know. There are a couple other things. Let's say, for example, we had imported a logo. We had placed a logo here. We had inscription here. We still had work to do, but we had to leave the office, weren't able to finish. Instead of having to restart everything, you can actually save the scene file by clicking on this button here. So you'll notice when I save the point cloud for the laser, I clicked on this here. So that's the image of the laser striking. But when we click on the disk, it saves the scene file. So not the point cloud, it saves the workable file with anything that you've imported here, so that you can then open it, clicking on this at another time whenever you're ready to work on it, and you can continue working on it. If we go to our point cloud view, it then activates these features here. So in our point cloud view, we can actually crop anything that we want by a rectangular crop or just a lasso like that, or a circular like that. We can invert our selection, so it just inverts whatever wasn't highlighted. and then we can click on the hide select points. So I find that this function is more, I guess, utilized when you have a point cloud. Let's say, for example, we had a point cloud and it had a date here, and the customer wanted us to change the date. You could just come here, highlight the date, click on the X, it'll delete the date, and then you can add the date in the scene over here. So this here is perhaps not the best example because it's a scene file and it's not a CAD. So let me just try and simulate what I'm trying to explain here so you can see exactly what I mean. So let's just say here test, and we'll just go to the side view here. All right, and we'll just click on go. Okay, and now I can go save it as a CAD. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on new. I will import a new one. There's my test CAD file. I'll open it. So now I've got my CAD in my scene view. So I can delete what I didn't want, and I can add my new text. And I think you get the point. I can click on go, and now it has, or it will have, my original object with my text, and I can save it. Okay, so that's how that works. This tool here, which is currently not active, is more for 2D. So let me just delete these files, and I'll just show those to you as well. If we open up a 2D file, in this case I'll just open up the texture file. So let's say, for example, the customer wanted this here in a block. I could either select the block from my list here, or I could just customize one quickly here. Let's call it 90, 60, 60 with a margin of 4, 4, and 2. Let's click on OK. What I can do is I can use this here to just eliminate what I don't want. So I don't want all of that. I don't want any of this. Okay. And I can move it, and then I can click on go. Of course, I'd probably want to click here and go to Photoshop and change it to grayscale and optimize it before doing it, but this is for 2D. All right. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the last function for today, which is the social broadcast. This here is an available plugin as an option. Contact us if you're interested in using that. This here is very, very powerful because what it enables you to do is for every order that you process on Cockpit3D, it enables you to broadcast it to the customer so that the customer can then receive a link, can share that link with family and friends on social media, and every time they do that, it will advertise your website. So if we want to do that, let me just open up a 3D file. And I'll just click on go quickly. So there's my 3D file. What you want to do is you want to zoom in. You want to change this to a social broadcast preview in low quality. You can increase the brightness of what you see here, again visually. The brightness of what comes in your crystal when you actually burn it is all based on how you optimize the photo and having the correct point spacing. However, for what we're going to view here, just for our view, for what we see on our screen, we can increase the density by pressing the Control, plus, and bracket buttons. Okay, so I'll just do that right now. Now this is a very low res. It says low quality, low res preview because if it was high res, it would delay our rotation ability, right? So we've kept it low res on purpose. However, if you want to see high res, you can click on this, or just click on social broadcast and it will convert it to high res. Now I'm running a PC that is, I don't know, it's like a 2007 PC, so it's an old PC and it's taking maybe, I don't know, about 20 or 25 seconds to do this. But for any of you that are running a laptop or a PC that's just a couple years old, it'll be like done within seconds. You can see here is a high-res preview of that image. Now you select the before image and just there now you can see the before and the after, and you click on create. And order ID is required, right? So this is asking for you to enter the order ID, which is found at the front of your file name. So in this case it's 51660, and you can click on create. And then send an email. So click on email and it'll email the customer a link where they can actually view the original photo and the new crystal. But when they view it, they'll view it as them being the poster of this website. So let me just show that to you. So when you send the email, they'll get a link. They click on the link and they'll see a website. It looks like this here. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what it looks. So basically, they've received a unique link, so it's private until they share it. They can share it up, I think it's, yeah, anywhere here, at the top or the bottom here, they can share it. And when we will customize this to have your logo on it, and we'll also customize it so that when the customer clicks on go, it takes them to your website. So when they share it on social media, it is going to be seen by all friends and family. So you can imagine how many hundreds, if not thousands, of eyeballs are going to see this image. Obviously, they're going to be proud or excited to show, themselves on this general website. It's a very generic website. It doesn't really have much branding, except for when we set it up for you, we will have your logo on it. And when they click on the go button, it'll take them to your website. Right now, it's not taking them anywhere because this is just a demo. And when the friends and family see what their friends got and they want to get it as well, they click on go. It takes them to your website where they can place an order. So this is the social broadcast. Again, a very powerful feature. And if you have analytics installed, you'll be able to see how many people are actually coming to your website through this feature as well, which is integrated through Cockpit3D. All right, so I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please send us an email, and we look forward to helping you take your business to new heights with what we have to offer.